video, we are going to see how to create an image from a running Docker container. So what we are going to do, we will run a Docker image in our local machine, and then we will access into that container and we will modify the running container. And then later on, we will save that container into a Docker image so that we can use that new Docker image to deploy the updated application, right? So without further ado, let's start. So as you see in my terminal, there is already a Docker image has been already downloaded, which is called Nginx. So basically this is a Docker image to deploy a web server as a container, right? So we will run this web server into our machine, and then we will access into that running container, and we will do some modification into the web server, and then we will save the running container into an image, right? So without further ado, let's run the web server from this Nginx image, right? And to do that, what we need to do, we will type in the terminal docker run, then -d. -d means the container will be running in the background, and then we will specify the port mapping, which is 8090 followed by 80. So what does it mean? The container port is 80, and once we run the container, it will be running on 8090 port in the local machine. That's what we want. And then we can give a name to this container. Let's say it's web server. All right, so that's all. And finally, we will specify the image that will be used to run this web server, which is Nginx, right? And that's what I want. And let's press enter. And as soon as you press enter, you will be given a very long number, which is basically the ID of the running container. And if we type docker ps and then press enter, then we can see the running container with all the details, right? For example, what is the ID of the container, right? What is the image used to run this container? What are the ports for this running container? And there are so many things that we can see from the terminal, right? So the web server has been successfully running as a container. And if we type curl localhost followed by 8090, we can see the web pages that will look like this, right? So now what we will do, we will access into the container and we will update this web page, right? And then we will save the container into a new image so that the new image can be used later on for the updated applications, right? So to do that, what we will do, we will just modify this line, which is welcome to Nginx. Now let's access into our running Docker container. But before we access into our container, we need to grab the ID of the container, which we need later on. So to get the ID of the container, we will type docker ps, and we will get the container details. And this is the ID that we need shortly. So I will just copy the ID. All right. So now we will access into our Docker container. And to do that, we will type in the terminal docker exec followed by -it. And then we need to specify the ID of the running container, which is this. And then we need to specify the path of our shell, right, which is /bin/bash. And once we press enter, we will be successfully accessed into our running Docker container, right? And now it's time to modify the web page that we have seen previously. But to do that, what we need to do, we need to install an editor in this running container. By default, the running container doesn't have any kind of editor installed, but we need to do that, all right? So to do that, what we will do, we will update the repository, all right? And once the repository is updated, we will type apt get install and vim. So this is the editor we will use to edit our web page. So let's press enter and let's confirm it. And shortly the vim editor will be installed, right? So we will use vim editor to edit our web page. So let's type vim followed by /user/share/nginx/html and then /index.html, right? So this is the web pages we have seen. So let's make the line number visible with set number. All right, so we have line numbers visible, and on line 12, you can see the line that we will modify. So which is welcome to Nginx. So what we're going to do, we will add subheader, and the subheader will be, this is an updated version, right? So we just modified our web page, and let's save it, right? So we modified our container. Now what we will do, we'll exit from the container, right? Now it's time to save this container into a new Docker image. So now what we will do, we will create a Docker image from this running container, right? And let's get the container ID again, which I need very shortly. So if I type Docker PS, so that was the container that we are working with. So let's copy the container ID again. And now we will create a new Docker image from this running container. And to do that, what I will type in the terminal is Docker followed by commit. So this is the main command we need to create a Docker image from a running container, right? And then we need to specify the ID of the running container, which is this. And then we will give a name to our new Docker image, which is, let's say, web server, right? And once you press enter, we will give in another long number. So if I type Docker images again, we can see we have 2 images now. Previously it was 1. And now we have a new Docker images, which is web server. We can see it was created 19 seconds back. So this is the new image that we just created, and that new image will have the updated web server, right? And now what we will do, we will run this Docker image in another port to see the effect, right? And to do that, what we will do, we will type Docker run, then -t, that means the container will be running in the background, and then we will specify the port mapping, which will be 8091. You remember the previous Docker image ran on 8090, but this one will be running on 8091, and the container port would be 80. And let's give a name to this container, which could be, let's say, updated web server, right? And finally, we need to specify the image, which will be the latest image that we have created. All right, so that's what we want. And once we press enter, you can see we will be given another long number, which will be ID of the container. And if we type Docker PS, then we can see now we have 2 containers running. This is the container that we have created previously, and this is the container that we just created, right? And we can see this container is running on port 8090, but the one we just created is running on 8091. So if we type curl localhost followed by 8091, which is the host port for our new running container, and if we press enter, we can see the web pages here, and we can also see the updated version of the web page, which includes the line, this is an updated version, right? So that's where we can create a Docker image from a running container. And that's what I want to tell you in this video. That's all. Thank you.